For decades, Balochistan, Pakistan's largest and poorest province, has been the site of a heavy-handed security crackdown. Thousands of people have been reported missing, with activists and family members accusing security forces of extrajudicial kidnappings and even murders. Now things have come to a head. There's a major protest movement demanding an end to these disappearances and accountability for those responsible. What's driving the current protests, and can they bring about real change? I'm Shannon, editor-in-chief at the Diplomat, and today I'm very happy to be joined by Somaiyah Hafeez, who is a Pakistan-based journalist who has been covering these protests and covering the issue of human rights and disappearances in Balochistan for years before. Somaiyah, thank you for joining me today.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So to start out, could you just give us some background? What sparked the current protests?
So the current protest, which basically the current protest movements that are happening in Balochistan, it's for the last 24 days, families of Baloch missing persons, other activists, students have been marching from Turbat, which is a city in Balochistan near Gwadar, which is the center for CPAC, and their main destination was Islamabad. Right now they're all in Islamabad. What sparked this entire movement on all of these protests was the extrajudicial and the custodial killing of Baloch. So Baloch was a student and he worked as a tailor and lived in the city of Turbat. What happened was that, according to his family, on October 29th, he was taken from his family during the night by the counterterrorism department, and for almost a month, his locations, his whereabouts were unknown both to the family and everyone else. And then later on, around on the 20th or 22nd of November, CTD levied some charges which the family claims were fake on Baloch, saying that Baloch was caught with explosives, and he was presented in front of the courts once, and then he was also scheduled to be presented once again on the 24th of November, but just one day before his second, appearance before the court, he was found dead in one of the fake, what the family claims to be fake encounter that the CTD conducted, in which not only Baloch, but three other Baloch men were also killed, which are also claimed to be previously missing persons. But we don't really have that many details over those cases. But so once Baloch's identity was revealed, after that his family staged a sit-in in Turbat along with his corpse, and there were protests all over Balochistan. Specifically, in the protests in Turbat went on for 2 weeks. Baloch was later on buried in a funeral which saw unprecedented scenes. The amount of people that joined the funeral, and some of the demands that the families had and the protesters had were an inquiry into the extrajudicial killing, the end to enforce disappearances, and bringing the officers in the CTD who were responsible for the custodial killing to be accountable.
Mm-hmm. So we have thousands of people marching to the Pakistani capital. How have the authorities, and particularly the police, responded? There have been many criticisms that the government's approach to Balochistan has been too security-centric in the past.
So the entire long march was marked by a lot of difficulties. There were also difficulties in Dera Ghazi Khan, which is again a city in Punjab. When the march arrived at Dera Ghazi Khan, there also they faced a lot of crackdown by the police and the authorities there. Some of the people were arrested. But what the marchers and the protesters and the families witnessed once they reached Islamabad, the crackdown by the police in Islamabad was something that wasn't there before, during the rest of the journey in the march. So what happened yesterday in Islamabad was that around 4 p.m. the marchers and the protesters were expected to arrive in Islamabad. The plan was to join Baloch missing person families who were already protesting outside the National Press Club in Islamabad. There were some families, such as the family of Saeed Ahmed, Rashid Hussain, Janzeb Mohammad Asmi, who had already been protesting, having a peaceful sit-in hunger token camp outside the National Press Club since almost 23 days. So the plan was that all of these marchers of the Long March will come and join these families at National Press Club. They'll have a rally and they'll join the sit-in. But this was something that authorities said that, we're not going to allow you to go to the National Press Club. You can go and have your rally or your sit-in at some of the at a park in Islamabad. But this was something that was not acceptable to the protesters, and so they were blocked from going towards the press club. And so I was at the press club yesterday. I went there to record the arrival of the Long March and do some of the interviews with the women there. Well, when I went there for long, we kept on being told by the organizers that the marchers have been stopped. They were first stopped at the toll plaza, which is just when they were entering Islamabad. The keys of the vehicles were taken away for them from a while. Various tactics were used to stop them. Then later on, they were stopped at Tarnol. And there toward so they even the families decided, once they were not able to come to any negotiations or any agreement with the authorities, they decided to have a sit-in. The marchers had a sit-in there at Tarnol, simultaneously outside the National Press Club, because both of these the sit-in camp at the National Press Club as well as the Long March, they're both being organized by the Baloch committee. So then there were sit-ins outside the National Press Club, which were peaceful, and but the protesters and the students outside National Press Club decided to block the roads leading, just outside the National Press Club. And later on, around 12 a.m., they decided to march towards the Chowk, the red zone area of Islamabad, to have a sit-in protest outside the Supreme Court so that the marchers can be allowed to come towards the press club. And this is when things got really violent. The police put up barbed wires, which some of the students tried to cross so that they can continue their journey towards the Supreme Court to have their protest. And this is when the police used water cannons, tear gassed at the protesters, platoon charged them. And I was there, and the scenes were extremely chaotic. I myself, experienced being tear gassed for the first time. And then afterwards, later on, after all of this, the students just went back to the press club. The protesters and the families went back to the press club, and there they continued their protest. But around 3 a.m. at night, without any provocation or without any instigation by the protesters, the police just came after everybody. They hit everyone. They pushed everybody into the camp and just started arresting everybody in a frenzy. I was also taken away with other women there, and everybody was kept in a police station, and so it's been. And at the same time, in Tarnol as well, all of the families of Baloch missing persons and all of the participants of the Long March were also arrested. And what we know currently is that the families of Baloch missing persons, the females, have been released, but a lot of Baloch male protesters, students, are still jailed. And so we also have reports coming that some of the participants, they are there's no news about their whereabouts, where they are. So there are concerns that something unpleasant could happen to them. And along with that, we're also seeing some cases of racial profiling of Baloch students within Islamabad after the incidences of yesterday. So these are, some of the updates that.
Mhm.
So that's definitely not encouraging to see the state using such a heavy-handed response. Have there been any signs that any of the major political parties are listening? And of course, Pakistan has an election coming up, so that also factors into the response, I'm sure.
So on this front, we've just had obviously solidarity messages, and even the ex-CM of Balochistan, Dr. Abdul Malik, yesterday called up on the caretaker government, caretaker Prime Minister Anwarullah Kakar, and some political parties within Balochistan have been, raising this issue and the crackdown. Have been condemning the crackdown of the state against these protesters and marchers. But that's about it. One thing I think that is important to note is that the generally Baloch people have sort of stopped having any hope uh, uh, that all these political parties will do anything substantial to help them with their cause. So I tried to speak with some of the families of Baloch missing persons. They were like that these political parties come to us for votes, and when it's election time, they talk about our issues and they give us fake hopes. But once they are in power, there's nothing that they do. So as for other main mainstream parties of Pakistan, such as the Pakistan People's Party and PMLN, we have not heard any condemnations or any messages from these parties for what has happened, the state crackdown against the Long March.
Where does the protest movement go from here?
So right now, Marang Baloch, who is leading these protests, said that tomorrow around 10 a.m. in the morning, the families will start their sit-in outside the National Press Club. But it's yet to be seen how that's going to go about, because it seems very certain that the state and the government is just not ready to have these people here in Islamabad, because last night what happened was that once bail was granted to all of the women who were arrested, the police said that they're not gonna, what release meant for the authorities was that once these people are taken out of the jail, they will be put into buses and taken back to Balochistan, and the words such as deported were used for these marchers, and these included women who are almost 70, 60-year old, who are here with pictures of their loved ones and just asking simple questions about their whereabouts. Although I came back around 7 p.m. and I was back home, but we saw on Twitter that we see police female officers forcefully dragging and throwing Baloch women marchers, which some of them also included Baloch students who were studying in Islamabad. They were all dragged and thrown into two buses which were lined up outside the police station, and the buses were brought here at the station specifically by the police to send these protesters back to Islamabad. But it was because of the defense of these families. And then afterwards, even journalist Ahmed Mir came to the scene to help these families out. And a lot of other activists joined in. And so this went on for around 3 to 4 hours. These Baloch women were put into the buses, and they stayed there as the police and the activists and other just kept on having a dialogue and a negotiation. But the police was very much adamant that they're not going to let these people stay in Baloch in Islamabad to have their sit-in. So we don't know what is to happen ahead. Although a call for sit-in has been announced by Baloch Executive Committee and Maring Baloch that tomorrow they're going to be outside the National Press Club. But right now, as there are a lot of male protesters and students who are still in jail, and a lot of them are being picked up, and given the kind of crackdown and how much adamant the police has been to send these people back to Balochistan, which is something, it's a step that has been highly criticized by everybody, because it definitely sends a message that as if they consider a Baloch do not be a part of Pakistan, because how it's been widely criticized that how could they say that they will send back. And even today, when the case was heard in the Islamabad High Court, the Chief Justice of Islamabad High Court said that this once bail was granted to these people, they were free to go wherever they wanted to. So why is it that the police had arranged for these buses to send these people back? So yeah, we'll see where it goes, but there's no denying that it's a huge win for all of these Baloch women who have been, leading this movement against enforced disappearances, because the kind of force and the kind of brutal force that was used by the police to ensure that they do not record their protest in Islamabad, it has definitely failed, because they're still here, which is something that the police did not wanted. They just wanted to send them back. So regardless of what happens, this entire long march has definitely been a huge historic win for the Baloch women who have been leading it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you've been covering these issues for years. We've seen these protests before, but this definitely feels like a turning point. So we will continue to keep an eye on it. I would encourage anyone who's interested in these issues to read Somaiyah's article on the protest for the Diplomat. But thank you for joining us today, Somaiyah, and thank you to everyone at home for tuning in.